Welcome back, listeners, to Sandman Stories Presents, a folklore podcast where I read you to sleep or until the next story. I'm your host, Dustin. Today, in episode 270, we are back in the book of Turkish folktales written down by Ignacz Kunos. In this story, we have another tale of the youngest saving the day, and a wedding that will put 7 brides for 7 brothers to shame. Okay, let's begin. The 40 Princes and the 7-Headed Dragon. There once was a padishah who had 40 sons, and they spent the whole day in the forest, hunting and snaring birds. When the youngest had completed his 14th year, their father thought it was time that they were married, and so he called them all together and spoke to them about the matter. "We are willing to marry," said the 40 brothers, "but only if we can meet with 40 sisters all having the same father and mother." The padishah therefore sought throughout his dominions such a family, but in vain. The greatest number of sisters in all the land was 39. "The 40th will have to take another," said the padishah to his sons. But they refused to agree to that, and begged their father to allow them to travel in foreign countries to seek the desired brides. What was the padishah to do? He could not dissuade them. He grudgingly granted their request. Before they set out, however, the padishah said to them, "There are 3 things which you must bear well in mind. When you reach a large spring, do not spend the night anywhere near it. Farther on is an inn. Do not spend the night there either. Beyond the inn is a great plain. Do not linger there a moment." The sons, promising to remember their father's advice, mounted their steeds and rode away. Smoking and talking, they wandered forward in their course, and as evening drew on, they came to a spring. "Now we will not take a single step farther," observed the eldest. "We are fatigued, and it is night. Besides, what do the 40 men have to fear?" So they alighted, ate their supper, and lay down to rest. The youngest, the 14-year-old brother, kept watch, however. Towards midnight, he heard a rustling sound. Cautiously he drew his weapon, and as the sound came nearer, he saw a 7-headed dragon. Both beast and youth rushed to attack one another. 3 times the dragon wrestled with the youth, but could obtain no advantage over him. "Now it's my turn," cried the prince. And with these words he struck the dragon with such a powerful blow that 6 heads fell from his body. "Strike once more," gasped the dragon. "Not I," returned the youth. The dragon sank to the earth, and behold, one of his heads began to roll. And it rolled until it reached a well. "Let him who has taken my life take also my treasure," said the head as it fell down the well. Now the youth took a rope, bound one end to a rock, and with it let himself down the well. At the bottom he found an iron gate. Opening it and entering, he saw a palace even more beautiful than that of his father. In the palace were 40 apartments, and in each apartment sat a maiden at an embroidery table, near which immense treasures were piling up. "Are you a man or a djinn?" asked the terror-stricken maidens. "I am a human being," answered the prince. "I killed the 7-headed dragon and came to this place by following one of his rolling heads." Now the 40 maidens rejoiced. They all embraced him and begged him to remain with them. Incidentally, they informed him that they were 40 sisters whom the dragon had stolen. He had killed their parents, and now they had not a single friend or relation in the whole wide world. "We are 40 brothers," said the prince, "and seek 40 maidens." Then he told them that he must ascend to his brothers, but that soon he would come and fetch them away. He came up from the well and went to the spring, where he lay down to fall asleep. Early the next morning, when the 40 brothers awoke, they began to laugh at their father's attempt to frighten them about the spring. They set off again and continued on their way until evening, when behold, the inn their father had mentioned stood before them. "We go no farther tonight," said the elder princes. The youngest, however, expressed the opinion that it might be good to follow their father's advice, but the others would not listen to him. They ate their supper, said their prayers, and lay down, but the youngest kept watch as before. Towards midnight he again heard a noise. With his drawn sword in hand, the young prince found himself confronting another 7-headed dragon, larger and more frightful than the one he had slain on the day before. The dragon straightway attacked the youth, but without effect. Then the youth fell on the dragon so furiously that 6 of his 7 heads fell. The monster begged for another blow as a coup de grace, but the prince declined. As on the previous occasion, one of his heads rolled into a well. The youth followed it and discovered a larger palace and greater treasures. Noting the place, he returned to his brothers, lay down, and fell asleep so soundly after the fatigue of his combat that his brothers had to rouse him the next morning. Mounting their horses again, they pursued their journey uphill and down dale, until by sunset they had reached a great plain. They ate and drank, and were just going to lie down when suddenly an awful shriek was heard, and the mountains seemed to quake. Terror seized everyone as they caught sight of a gigantic 7-headed dragon, spitting fire and roaring.
"Who has killed my 2 brothers? Bring him to me so that I may slay him."
The youngest saw plainly that all of his brothers were paralyzed with fear and unable to do anything. He delivered to them the keys of both wells, telling them to take home the 40 maidens and the treasure. He promised that when he had killed the dragon, he would follow them. The 39 sprang on their horses and rode away. Now we will return to the youngest. The conflict between the prince and the dragons was a stern one, and they fought a long time without either one overcoming the other. When the dragon realized that the struggle was in vain, he said to the prince,
"If you will go to the land of Chinamachin and bring me the Padishah's daughter, I will spare you your life."
The prince consented to the condition, for he was too exhausted to continue combat any longer. Champalak, as the dragon was called, gave the prince a bridle and instructed him as follows.
"Every day a magic horse, Ajgir, grazes here. Catch him, put this bridle on him, and command him to take you to the land of Chinamachin."
So the youth took the bridle and waited for the magic horse. The golden-hued steed came flying through the air, and no sooner was the bridle laid upon him than he said, "Command me, little sultan. Shut your eyes, open your eyes." And behold, there was the youngest prince in the far-off land of Chinamachin. He alighted from the horse, took off the bridle, and walked into the city. Entering an old woman's hut, he asked whether she could find him lodgings. "Willingly," answered the old woman. She offered him a seat and prepared some coffee. While he was drinking, he made inquiries as to the condition of the country. The old woman said, "A 7-headed dragon has fallen violently in love with our sultan's daughter. For years there has been war on her account, and we cannot get rid of the monster." "And the sultan's daughter?" questioned the prince. "She inhabits a kiosk in the Padishah's garden, and away from it she dares not to step," answered the old woman. Next day the prince went to the Padishah's garden and asked the gardener to take him into his service. He begged so earnestly that at length the man took pity upon him. "You have no other duty but to water the flowers," said the gardener. The sultan's daughter saw the young man, and she called him to the window, asking him how he came to be in that land. The young man told her that his father was a padishah, and then he described his fight with Champalak, and how he had promised to bring him the sultan's daughter. "But fear not," continued the prince. "My love is much greater than that of the dragon, and if you will come with me, I know how to destroy him." The maiden herself had fallen in love with the handsome prince, and moreover wished to escape from her constant imprisonment. Her trust in the prince was so great that one night they left the kiosk together in secret and repaired to Champalak's plain. On the way, they discussed what the maiden might do to discover the dragon's talisman, for through that talisman the prince meant to destroy the monster. We may imagine Champalak's joy when he saw the sultan's daughter before him.
"What happiness that you have come! What happiness that you have come!"
he repeated again and again as he caressed the princess, who was weeping all the time. Days and weeks elapsed, but the princess never dried her tears. "If you would at least tell me what your talisman is," she said one day to the dragon, "perhaps my days would not be quite so wearisome."
"My darling,"
replied the dragon,
"it is guarded in a place impossible of access. In a certain country there is a large palace, and whoever gets into it never gets out again."
This was all the prince needed to know. He took his bridle, threw it into the sea, and the golden-hued steed appeared. "What is your command, little sultan?" "To the palace of the dragon's talisman." Shut your eyes, open your eyes, and there he was at the palace. As the prince dismounted, the magic horse said to him, "Fasten my bridle to the iron rings at the palace gate. When I neigh once, knock the rings together, and the gate will open. The gate is a lion's jaw, and if you can cut it asunder with a single blow of your sword, you are safe. Otherwise, your last hour has come." Accordingly, the prince fastened the magic horse to the rings, and when it neighed, the gate opened. The prince struck the gaping jaws of the lion with a stout blow and split the creature asunder. This done, he cut open its stomach and took out a cage containing 3 doves, so beautiful that their equals had never been seen before. Taking one in his hand, he stroked its plumage, caressed it, and prrr, it suddenly flew away. If the magic horse had not quickly flown after it, caught it, and wrung its neck, the prince would not have met his lady-love again. Now he remounted his magic horse. Shut your eyes, open your eyes, and once again he found himself at Champalak's palace. At the gate, the youth killed the 2 other doves, and as he went in, the dragon fell in an inert mass to the floor. Seeing the dead doves in the prince's hand, he implored him to let him stroke them once more before he died. The youth, seized with pity, was about to offer the birds to the dragon, when the sultan's daughter ran in and tore them away. Upon this, the dragon perished miserably. "Fortunately for you," said the magic horse, "that you did not give him the birds. New life for him was in their touch." As there was no further use for it, the bridle now disappeared, and with it the magic horse. The prince and the sultan's daughter gathered together all the dragon's treasures and bore them to the land of Chinamachin. The padishah had become quite ill through the worrying about the disappearance of his daughter. Search had been made for her throughout the length and breadth of his dominions, but as she could not be found, the padishah had come to the conclusion that she had fallen into the power of the dragon. When the princess appeared again, safe and sound, he gladly gave her in marriage to the prince, and the wedding was celebrated with great rejoicing. After the honeymoon, they set out, with a brilliant retinue of soldiers, for the palace of the prince's father. The prince was thought to have died many years ago, and his claim to be indeed the prince would hardly have been accepted had he not related the story of the 3 dragons and the 40 sisters. His 39 brothers married 39 of the sisters, the 40th becoming the wife of the princess of Chinamachin's brother, and henceforth they all lived in the greatest happiness. The end.
Bir güzel
This sounds a lot like an Armenian tale and a Georgian tale. And normally it's the youngest of the 3 brothers, like in the Golden Apple, or the one about the sheep's fleeces. Still, I love the saying Chinamachin, thinking about the 3 pigs, and not by the hair of my Chinamachin. I would love to hear more from the women's side, but alas, that is not how most of these tales are written. Still, I'm enjoying these stories so much. And the podcast shout-out is to Campfire Classics. This is a couple of theater kids getting into public domain short stories. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, I was a techie in high school. Not the actor, I did the technical stuff. Heather and Ken are funny and have a lot of filthy jokes, including Cinderella at the ball, and they tend to just have a good time reading these stories. And so if you like their show as much as I do, go and give them a like, a rating, and a review. And the listener shout-out is to the people way up high in La Paz. In 1584, a Spanish colonizer took the Inca village of Laja and transformed the area into the city of La Paz. In 1781, an indigenous freedom fighter named Tupac, not that Tupac, but that is where the inspiration comes from, Tupac Katari laid siege to the city, but had to give up after 6 months. Not too much later, in 1821, the country liberated itself from the Spanish. And it's also home to the pre-Columbian spirit Equico, the spirit of prosperity. He comes out in a parade in La Paz every January 24th. Dang, just missed it. Maybe next year. And one of the local languages is Aymara, which has a lot in common with Runashimi, also known as Quechua. It has a lot of conjugations, and so I'm sure I will sound like a caveman, but here it goes. Suma, ukat, aski, arumakipana. Thank you, and good night.